Welcome to this session of strategic analysis.
Mm.
We're going straight to the core of, well, what really separates a highly skilled independent contractor, someone who makes decent money but is just living on a financial roller coaster,
Right.
from a stable, thriving, six-figure consultant who actually runs a predictable business.
A real business, not just a high-paying job.
Exactly. And today, we're doing a really targeted analysis, a complete blueprint that we're calling our six-figure freelancer session.
I like that.
Yeah, our goal is to just extract the fundamental lessons from some source material that I think meticulously diagnoses the single most destructive mindset in high-value consulting.
And we see it everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yep.
That mindset is the common yet profoundly dangerous philosophy that gets summed up in that phrase we've all used. I'll just figure it out as I go.
The mantra of the unprepared.
It really is. So our mission today is to move you from scrambling, reacting, and frankly, hoping for the best to strategic success, stability, and, that predictable income. Now, the source material focuses specifically on quantity surveying consultants.
Right, QS consultants. So experts in construction cost and contract management.
Exactly. But the structural lessons for anyone building a serious, stable service business, whether you're in architecture, specialized finance, fractional CMO roles, or niche tech consulting, they are completely universal.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's unpack this. We are tackling the mindset that kills momentum and keeps high earners trapped in instability.
And that universality is really what's so fascinating here. It just doesn't matter if you're calculating the cost of concrete or if you're optimizing a global marketing strategy. The business infrastructure challenges are, well, they're identical.
Same fundamental problems.
Exactly. What the source material highlights is the inherent temptation, it's a psychological trap, really, of starting any knowledge-based service business by focusing only on the one thing you excel at.
Which is your technical skill.
Your technical skill.
Sure.
It's natural, right? You're brilliant at the work itself, so you assume kind of logically that the business stuff around it, the sales, the operations, the internal structure, that it'll all just materialize once the contracts start rolling in.
You think, why waste time on admin when I could be out there earning?
That's the thought process. But that immediate viability, it just masks the long-term instability.
It's a trap.
It is. The core conflict is really stark.
Yeah.
You can absolutely get pretty far with that, that winging it approach in the short term. Your technical expertise lands you those initial high-paying contracts.
Sure.
But, and this is the crucial distinction we really have to emphasize here, unstructured execution never builds a stable, scalable consultancy. The journey from being a high-paid individual, a freelancer, to managing a genuine, predictable, six-figure plus entity, it requires a fundamental, intentional, structural shift.
So you said to go from being the technician to being the business designer.
That's the entire game,
Yeah.
technician to business designer.
So let's dive into the psychology of that. Why is this, I'll just figure it out as I go, approach so pervasive, especially among people who are highly technical experts?
Right.
Because, as you said, the technical skill is often enough to get those first few jobs. If you're a fantastic QS consultant who can spot a major cost overrun, or a brilliant programmer who can debug a complex system, someone will pay you.
And they'll pay you handsomely.
Handsomely, to solve their immediate acute problem.
And that immediate positive feedback, getting that big check, it reinforces the idea that you don't need the structure.
Right. Why would I bother defining my ideal client or building repeatable processes when that client just paid me 5 figures for a custom one-off solution?
Exactly. The immediate gratification is, it's a potent psychological drug. It allows you to defer all that uncomfortable, non-billable work of building the business architecture.
And that's the moment the consultant gets trapped, isn't it?
Right. That is the exact moment. They mistake immediate earning capacity for long-term business viability. The source material is just crystal clear on this. Technical skill alone is radically insufficient. A stable business needs defined direction to grow.
Direction. That's the key word.
That is the missing piece of the six-figure puzzle, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in.
So when you lack that definition, that direction, what actually happens? You just don't have the infrastructure to support growth or manage complexity.
Exactly. The lack of direction forces the consultant to operate in what the source calls constant reaction mode. You're running a business where every single decision is determined by external pressure, not by your own internal strategy.
Okay, so let's analyze what constant reaction mode truly means on a daily basis. Since you haven't proactively defined your scope or your ideal client, which are pillars 1 and 2, and we'll get to those later. Every new job request that comes in, no matter how messy or low margin it is or how far it is outside your sweet spot, it feels like something you have to take.
You feel like you can't afford to say no.
You can't.
Exactly. The source describes every new job request as like walking into a fire to put out. You're just constantly responding to external chaos. Think about it. A QS consultant who specializes in these huge industrial projects, but then they take a rush job calculating materials for a small residential developer just because they need the cash flow that month.
And that job is totally different.
It's a completely different workflow. It needs different software setups. It carries different risk profiles. So they're working hard, for sure, but they're working so inefficiently. They're just burning cycles on tasks that don't align with their core competency at all.
And that external chaos that then feeds directly into the second symptom, right? Every single inquiry becomes a negotiation.
Oh, this is a huge one.
If you don't have defined packages or defined value or pricing based on outcome, you can't just present a structured offer and say, here it is. You are immediately forced into haggling.
Haggling over every line item, every scope boundary, every minute of your time. It is exhausting.
It's exhausting, it's stressful, and critically, it almost always results in leaving a significant amount of profit on the table. You spend days just debating the price of the project, time you could have spent executing it or, strategically finding the next client.
And furthermore, because this reactive consultant is always custom fitting solutions for clients who are often misaligned with their core expertise because they haven't clearly defined who they serve, the source points out that every project starts to feel unique, bespoke.
Which sounds good, but it's a trap.
It sounds high-end, but it kills efficiency. It makes any attempt at standardization totally impossible. If you are constantly reinventing the wheel, designing new proposals from scratch, writing new contracts, developing new project tracking spreadsheets for every single client, you lose all the benefits of specialization and process improvement.
You're selling customized craftsmanship when you should be selling a structured, repeatable solution.
Perfectly put.
And this all leads to the most paralyzing consequence, the thing that really prevents that leap to six-figure freelancers, stability. Every single month feels uncertain. The revenue stream is lumpy. It's feast or famine.
Terrifying cycles of feast or famine.
That uncertainty is the absolute antithesis of a stable business. It ensures the consultant stays chained to this operational treadmill instead of getting up to a strategic level.
And the key takeaway here, which really underpins this entire analysis, is so critical. It's not that the consultant is doing anything wrong from a technical standpoint. They're highly skilled.
Right. They're brilliant at what they do.
They're brilliant. It's just that they lack the clarity that creates momentum. Without that foundational clarity, the business structure itself is just, it's porous. It's leaking time, profit, and emotional energy all over the place.
Okay, now we need to systematically unpack the 7 specific problems that the source lists, because these aren't just, minor frustrations. They are compounding structural weaknesses that actively prevent stability and lead directly to burnout.
They feed on each other.
They absolutely do. We need to go beyond just listing them and really analyze the financial and personal cost of each one.
And these pain points, they're the inevitable, painful manifestation of that fundamental lack of direction we were just talking about. They provide tangible proof that while your technical expertise gets you the initial job, it's the business structure that determines if you can sustain and grow that business into a predictable, high-value entity.
Okay, let's start with the most immediate, the most tangible issues, the financial ones. Irregular revenue and pricing inconsistencies. This is the chaos that keeps independent professionals awake at 3 a.m.
This is the real-world pain.
It is. We already established that the work comes in floods and droughts, which obviously creates irregular revenue. But let's zoom in on the specific cost of pricing inconsistency for a minute. When you negotiate every project individually, especially when you feel desperate for the contract, you anchor yourself and the market to these wildly different rates. One month you charge, say, $200 an hour. The next month you accept $125 an hour because you just need to fill the gap.
And that confuses everyone. It confuses the client, first of all, who might hear through their network that you charged another firm half of what you're quoting them.
Which destroys trust.
Instantly. And it confuses you. It leads to this debilitating self-doubt about what your true worth actually is. And structurally, it makes any kind of financial forecasting impossible.
You have no idea what next quarter looks like.
No idea. The lack of standardized pricing erodes your entire market position. You start to look like a generalist offering custom labor, not a specialized partner offering defined value.
So these financial issues, they're not random bad luck. They are the direct symptoms of not having defined offers and clearly articulated value propositions.
Absolutely. If your service menu isn't fixed, your pricing will always be unstable. We saw this with the QS consultants. If they haven't defined what specific modeling service they offer and what that defined outcome is worth, say, based on the cost savings it generates for the client,
Then the client just defaults to seeing it as a cost.
the client automatically frames the conversation as a cost reduction exercise for them. They're just trying to get the cheapest price.
And the result is that negotiation fire we talked about, where your profit margins, the very margins you need to hire people or invest back into the business, they just get eaten away.
You're forced to trade time for cash instead of guaranteed value for profit. And that feeds the cycle.
How so?
Well, when you're constantly stressed about where the next contract is coming from because of that irregular revenue, you are psychologically primed to accept a lower, inconsistent price just to stabilize things for the current week.
It's a short-term fix.
A very short-term fix that creates a self-fulfilling prophecy of instability. The lack of structure causes financial stress, and the financial stress pressures you into making bad pricing decisions, which then further degrades the structure. Achieving that consistent six-figure freelancer status is just impossible when your psychological state dictates your pricing strategy.
Okay, so moving beyond the bank account to the day-to-day grind. The next 3 pain points really highlight the operational friction: unpredictable workload, client misunderstandings, and the dreaded endless admin.
Ah, yes, the daily reality.
We've sort of established why the workload is unpredictable. Without a defined systemic method for clients to find you, the work just shows up. It's referrals, one-off inquiries, sudden rushes that you can't possibly manage.
Which means you can't plan vacations.
You can't plan vacations, you can't hire anyone, you can't even reliably forecast your cash flow because you have no earthly idea if next month is going to be 0 projects or 10 projects.
And that leads directly to the silent killer in a lot of these businesses. Client misunderstandings and scope creep. It really is. If the way you deliver your service, your methodology, your communication schedule, the output formats, if none of that is standardized, then you are relying solely on the client's vague expectations and your memory of what you might have said in an email 3 weeks ago.
That's a recipe for disaster.
It is. When you genuinely figure it out as you go, the client thinks they paid for X. But because you didn't have a clear, standardized document outlining deliverables A, B, and C, which is pillar 3, they inevitably demand D, E, and F down the line.
And that not only stresses the client relationship, risking negative referrals, but it eats up massive amounts of your time.
Time that should have been high value, billable hours, or time spent on strategic development, it's just gone.
And this operational sloppiness has a direct, quantifiable consequence that the source mentions: the necessity of dealing with endless admin. This is the manifestation of that operational drag.
It's death by 1,000 paper cuts.
It really is. Endless admin is a direct result of constantly reinventing the wheel. Just think about that QS consultant who takes on 10 different clients in a year and has to write 10 unique proposals and 10 unique tracking spreadsheets and 10 unique final reports just because they never took the time to build a centralized, standardized template.
That's time spent being an administrative assistant, not an expert consultant earning top dollar.
Exactly.
The source material actually included an internal analysis of how these QS consultants were spending their time. And it was shocking. It revealed that consultants who were spending just 15 hours a week on non-standardized admin—
15 hours a week.
15. Things like chasing down documentation, rewriting proposals from scratch, handling scope disputes over email, they were effectively cutting their highest potential billable rate by 37.5%.
Wow, that lost time is what directly prevents them from scaling.
It's the whole ballgame. And the irony is that the reactive consultant often views standardization as some kind of, bureaucratic constraint on their creativity.
It'll slow me down.
Right. When in reality, it's the one thing that would liberate them. It frees up the cognitive space to actually focus on solving the complex technical problems they were hired for in the first place.
Okay, let's look at the final and maybe the most damaging consequences now. Burnout and 0 long-term planning.
The end game of the reactive model.
Yeah, and here's where it gets really interesting, because now we can connect the previous 5 problems directly to this massive hidden personal cost. Sustained reaction mode is just fundamentally exhausting.
It's like you said, perpetually driving a car with one foot on the gas and the other on the brake.
Right. Burnout is the inevitable outcome of that sustained operational chaos and financial stress. The constant firefighting, the negotiation drag, the unpredictable schedule, it just drains your mental reserve. It poisons your sleep.
And the sources make a really strong case that burnout is a structural problem. It's not a personal failure of the consultant.
That's a really important distinction.
It is. Let's analyze the cycle of burnout in high-value consulting. When your stress is consistently high, what happens? Your confidence plummets. You stop believing you can command top dollar because you feel disorganized and, frankly, desperate.
And that psychological drop leads you to do what?
It leads you directly to accepting faster deals at lower prices, often way outside your defined scope, just to get a temporary reduction in that financial uncertainty.
Which creates a self-perpetuating loop of instability.
Exactly. It guarantees you will never achieve that sustainable six-figure freelancer status, no matter how good you are at the technical work.
And the final piece of this whole instability puzzle is the absence of long-term planning. I mean, if you're constantly putting out fires, you never have a moment to lift your head up and look at the horizon.
There is no horizon. There's only the next fire.
Right. Without clarity on what success looks like, and that's pillar 7, there's no goal to aim for beyond just surviving the current quarter.
You're always just running on the treadmill of immediate deliverables, chasing the next paycheck, instead of building strategic assets for the future.
You're not asking the important questions. You're not asking, what intellectual property should I be creating? What market should I be trying to dominate next year? What processes can I automate and maybe outsource?
No, you're simply asking, what task needs to be done right now?
And this point is just so crucial for an expert audience. Your technical skill becomes a highly paid trap because you never create a business entity that is worth more than your immediate hourly labor.
That's a powerful way to put it.
If you never build processes, you never create intellectual property, and you never achieve true differentiation, you never create a business that you can scale or even sell one day.
You're too busy executing everything yourself to design the structure that would allow you to stop executing everything yourself. This is the difference between being a high-paid contractor and being a true consultancy owner defined by their system.
Wow. Okay, so that structural diagnosis of the 7 pain points is, it's pretty severe. But the good news is that the solution is equally structural.
Which is where it gets hopeful.
It is. There has to be a moment of reflection here. If you recognize yourself in any of those 7 painful scenarios, the fix isn't to try and work harder. The fix is to stop, take a deep breath, and design the structure intentionally.
Stop reacting and start designing.
Exactly. This intentionality, the establishment of what the source calls the 7 clarity pillars. This is the radical structural fix that can transition a QS consultant or any specialized expert from just surviving to truly thriving as a stable, high-value entity.
And these definitions, they're not just abstract philosophical exercises. This is the required business infrastructure. If you look at these 7 pillars, each one directly addresses one or more of the 7 pain points we just spent all that time diagnosing.
They're the scaffolding.
They're the scaffolding that stabilizes the entire operation and, crucially, establishes that thing we're after, momentum.
Okay, let's start with the first one. Pillar 1, define who you serve.
This is absolutely fundamental. The old saying is true. If you serve everyone, you serve no one. The QS sources found that the consultants who tried to service commercial, residential, infrastructure, and legal clients all at the same time were just spread way too thin.
They couldn't get deep enough in any one area.
Right. They were unable to achieve true expertise or any kind of marketing resonance in any one of those areas.
And that specificity in your ideal client profile it's a strategic move.
Oh.
When you define your target market, let's say it's specialized pharmaceutical manufacturing facilities that are building clean rooms, or SaaS companies that are seeking rapid M&A integration.
You know exactly where to spend your marketing energy.
Exactly. The clarity about who you serve makes pillar 4, which is how clients find you, infinitely easier because you know where that specific client reads, what they worry about at night, and who they listen to for advice.
And beyond marketing, specificity is a pricing lever. It's a huge one. When you specialize, you become highly skilled at solving a very specific set of high-stakes problems for a very specific type of person.
which immediately increases your perceived value.
Immediately, because you are now seen as an expert in their unique context, not just a generic skilled technician available for hire. That's what justifies the premium pricing you need for six-figure freelancers status, and it immediately filters out all those low-value, high-hassle clients that were causing all that administrative drag in the first place.
Okay, on to pillar 2. Define what you offer. This feels like a huge shift, moving from custom bespoke services to defined products or packages.
This is the critical transition from selling your hours to selling predictable outcomes. The source material really emphasizes defining what you offer as the direct cure for inconsistent pricing and that unpredictable workload.
So instead of creating a unique, customized statement of work for every single inquiry, which is what fuels that negotiation fire,
Right.
you present, say, 3 defined packages,
Right.
a bronze, a silver, and a gold. The bronze package solves problem A for price X with a clearly defined deliverable and timeline. The gold package solves problems A, D, and C for price Y, and it guarantees a specific, measurable result.
The structural change here is immense. It immediately forces the client to choose from your structured menu rather than trying to negotiate the entire service from scratch.
It changes the entire conversation.
It simplifies the sales process completely. The conversation shifts from, so what will this cost me, to which level of service best solves my current problem.
Which puts you in control.
Completely. And this allows for what you could call the bulk production of your service, which dramatically increases your profit margin and stabilizes the workload because packages have known predictable timelines.
Okay, pillar 3. Define how you deliver.
Standardization. And I know we touched on this, but it's not just about reducing mistakes. It's about creating intellectual property. Defining how you deliver means documenting your processes, creating templates, and establishing clear internal workflows for literally everything, from the initial client intake to the final deliverable handover.
But a question for you. For a creative field, like, say, high-end design or strategy or specialized consulting, doesn't that kind of rigid standardization kill the very creativity and bespoke innovation that clients are paying for? How does the source reconcile that tension between efficiency and innovation?
That's a critical question, and the source addresses it by making a distinction between standardizing the framework and standardizing the solution.
Okay, explain that.
The creative work, the actual application of your expertise, that remains unique to each client. But all the surrounding elements, the contract generation, the communication cadences, the project management software you use, the milestone approval stages, all of that can and absolutely must be standardized.
I see. So you're standardizing the container, not the content.
Exactly. And this standardization is the essential antidote to both endless admin and client misunderstandings. If every project follows the same steps, uses the same templates, and has the same communication cadence, you drastically reduce scope creep, errors, and the need to constantly reinvent the wheel.
And you mentioned intellectual property.
Yes. Documenting these processes is how you create transferable IP. That IP is what you sell when you eventually exit the business, or it's what you train new employees on when you decide to scale.
And crucially, it gives you the structural integrity to enforce boundaries.
Oh, massively. If a client asks for something that's outside the defined delivery process, the consultant can confidently point back to the established methodology and make it clear that a change like that requires a scoop adjustment and an additional fee, something that's impossible to enforce when you're just winging it.
All right, pillar 4. Define how clients find you. We talked about how irregular revenue and unpredictable workload were these massive pain points that lead to burnout. So defining how clients find you means you have to transition from just relying on chance referrals to creating reliable, measurable pathways.
For the QS consultants in the source, this is particularly important because of the cyclical nature of construction projects. The work comes in these huge multi-year waves, and then it's followed by lulls.
And the reactive consultant panics during the lull.
They panic. But the structured consultant uses Pillar 4 to counteract this. This transition means moving from passive waiting to proactive, consistent lead generation.
So what does that look like practically?
It involves selecting and committing to just one or two marketing channels. It could be thought leadership content targeted at defined industry executives. It could be strategic partnerships with, say, architecture firms, or a defined referral program with incentive tracking. The key is to pick something and execute on it consistently.
And when you know how clients find you, you can measure the process.
You can measure it. You can start to predict, with increasing accuracy, how many leads you need this month to ensure you close enough deals to meet next month's revenue goal.
And this systematic approach is what finally fixes that fundamental problem of irregular revenue.
It transforms financial uncertainty into reliable forecasting. It allows you to stabilize your emotional state and, as a result, your pricing structure. You are no longer desperate for the next contract that walks in the door.
All right, pillar 5. Define what you charge. Now we're talking money, which is often the most anxiety-inducing part of the reactive model.
It is, and defining what you charge involves a complete paradigm shift away from hourly rates and toward value-based charging. And this is all anchored by the clarity you established in Pillars 1 and 2.
Hourly rates punish efficiency.
They punish efficiency. Value-based charging rewards the application of your expertise. For the QS consultant, you don't charge for the 40 hours it took you to review the blueprints. You charge for the projected $500,000 in material costs you prevented them from wasting.
You're charging for the outcome.
For the outcome. The source material suggests calculating value by anchoring your pricing to the scale of the benefit you provide. A common high-level calculation is to propose a fee that's somewhere between 10 and 20% of the projected savings or gain you deliver to the client.
Can you give an example?
Sure, if your advice guarantees a software implementation will be completed 6 months faster, saving the client, say, $250,000 in internal labor costs, then a $40,000 fee is immediately justifiable and perfectly clear.
And this clarity, it empowers the consultant to step away from the negotiation table as a beggar and sit down as an equal partner.
That's the shift. When your value proposition is defined and your pricing is standardized, meaning you have a standard fee for standard predictable outcome deals close faster because the client understands the return on investment. They get it. This structural clarity is what eliminates inconsistent pricing for good.
Okay, pillar 6. Define how you differentiate. In a crowded market, technical skill is it's the entry fee.
It's table stakes.
It really is. If everyone in your field is competent, what makes your consultancy unique beyond the technical skill that everyone else has? This intentional definition of how you differentiate is so key to achieving higher client respect and closing deals faster.
And differentiation isn't just a vague marketing slogan. It has to be operationalized. It has to be real.
Right. So the source material identified several core types of differentiation. One was technological edge, like a QS consultant who uses some proprietary AI software for faster cost modeling.
Another was hyper-niche focus, focusing exclusively on, say, compliance for modular home construction, super specific.
And a third was contractual guarantee, maybe offering a penalty reduction clause if specific benchmarks aren't met, which is a massive value add that competitors can't match if their own processes, their pillar 3, aren't rock solid.
And when you define this differentiator, you give potential clients a reason to choose you that is not about price.
That's the goal.
It is. It justifies your premium pricing, and it actively combats the need to constantly negotiate. For a specialized consultant, your differentiation has to justify a premium. It has to make you clearly worth 50% more than your nearest competitor simply because you mitigate risk or you accelerate outcomes in a way that they just cannot.
And finally, pillar 7. Define what success looks like. This is where we address that zero long-term planning problem head-on.
Yes. Defining what success looks like means establishing clear, ambitious, and measurable long-term goals and metrics for the business itself, not just for the client projects you're working on.
And this is where we have to move beyond just basic revenue targets.
We have to. For an audience that's serious about that six-figure freelancer status, this means defining goals beyond just income. Is success defined by achieving X amount of revenue with a team of 2? Is it having 90% of your revenue come from just 2 defined product lines that you created in Pillar 2?
And crucially, strategic planning has to include defining your risk tolerance.
Yes. Strongly recommend using strategic metrics like client concentration risk. A goal could be ensure that no single client accounts for more than 20% of your annual revenue. If you fail to define this and one client currently represents 70% of your income, you are highly, highly unstable no matter how much you're earning.
So establishing these concrete structural goals is what cures the aimlessness of the reactive mindset. It provides a strategic compass for every single daily decision.
It does, and every time you consider taking on one of those low-paying, high-admin jobs that doesn't fit your defined ideal client, you can measure it against your definition of success.
You ask yourself, does this task move me closer to the kind of stable, high-value business I defined in Pillar 7?
And if the answer is no, you have the structural integrity to confidently refuse the work. And by doing that, you protect yourself from burnout and you ensure you only spend your time on high leverage activities.
It's really remarkable how quickly the whole atmosphere can shift once these 7 clarity pillars are actually put into place. That reactive mindset is replaced by a proactive, intentional design posture.
You stop being a victim of your circumstances and you start dictating the terms.
You do. And the source material lists these immediate practical benefits that result from this intentional design. Clients respect them more.
Because a structured business looks professional and competent.
Pricing becomes easier.
Because it's tied to a predefined value, not some arbitrary negotiation.
And deals close faster.
Because the process is clear and the value is articulated precisely through those defined offerings.
But let's not forget the personal benefits. Stress drops, and work becomes predictable.
And that is the true quality of life change that separates the struggling high-skill freelancer from the stable strategic consultant. The business is no longer an unpredictable emotional roller coaster because the owner finally has control.
Right. But the deepest transformation is, it's philosophical. It's summarized by the source's most powerful finding, I think. Clarity creates confidence. Confidence creates opportunity.
Let's dedicate some time to that confidence factor because it's the real engine of sustained growth.
It is. Confidence isn't arrogance. It's knowledge that's based on structure.
Yes.
So when the consultant has confidence in their pricing from Pillar 5, confidence in their documented delivery from Pillar 3, and confidence in their predictable business model from Pillar 4, they are finally empowered to screen clients better.
And this allows them to refuse work that doesn't fit the defined structure. All those messy, low-margin, scope-creepy jobs that lead directly to burnout.
This ability to confidently say no is absolutely essential for maintaining the high-quality, high-profitability level that you need for a stable six-figure business.
When you are confident, you are selective, and that selectivity protects your time and your margins.
So the consultancy stabilizes because the owner has moved from being a skilled technician who's just reacting to external demands to a business designer who is dictating the internal direction.
They are no longer a victim of market forces. They are actively shaping their own segment of the market. They're moving from being an operational executor to being the strategic CEO of their own domain.
And this structural shift is what truly enables scaling, isn't it?
It's the only way. Because the processes from Pillar 3 and the offers from Pillar 2 are so clearly defined, the business is no longer reliant solely on the owner's personal output.
So you can hire support.
You can hire support, you can train associate consultants, or you can leverage automation. You can multiply your own capacity and ensure continuous growth without the corresponding burnout.
So the clarity pillars, they're not just about feeling better. They're about building tangible business assets.
Documented processes, defined offers, predictable pipelines that have real transferable value.
Which ensures that the next time you decide to make a big professional change, you have a business you can actually sell, not just a job you have to quit.
So let's bring this all to a close.
Yeah. Whether you are a QS consultant, a highly specialized designer, a fractional executive, or a niche software implementer, the biggest hurdle to stable, high-value success isn't a lack of technical skill.
We've established that.
It is lacking strategic clarity in defining your business structure. That figure-it-out-as-I-go approach is the ultimate structural obstacle to achieving that predictable six-figure freelancer status.
And the solution, as we've derived from the source material, is intentional design. It means taking the time right now to define those 7 foundational pillars: who you serve, what you offer, how you deliver, how clients find you, what you charge, how you differentiate, and finally, what success looks like.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? If you're in SaaS implementation, what's your equivalent of the QS consultant's cost model? If you're a high-end graphic designer, what is your equivalent of that unpredictable construction cycle? You have to apply these 7 pillars to your core technical output.
If you feel that chaotic instability, that burnout, or that sense of constant negotiation, the fix is structural. It's not technical. You are simply operating without a blueprint.
The final takeaway has to focus on an active, immediate step.
It does. If you currently feel like every project is different and every month is uncertain, you need to identify which of those 7 clarity pillars is the weakest link in your current structure.
Maybe you have massive pricing inconsistencies because you haven't really defined what you offer in a repeatable package.
Or you have zero long-term planning because you haven't defined what success truly looks like for you beyond a simple revenue target. Maybe you need to tackle that client concentration risk we talked about.
So ask yourself this single challenging question right now. What is the single most important definition? Who, what, how, charge, differentiate, or success that you need to nail down this week to stop operating in reaction mode?
That active commitment to intentional design is the very first step toward building the stable, predictable, high-value consulting business you deserve.
Think about it, define it, and then go build it. We'll catch you next time for more strategic business analysis.
Until then.